And then I was thinking about 1986 when I came to the University of North Dakota as Vito was leaving, and we sat and talked about all of his projects and who would be picking up what. And I'm trying to remember all the things we talked about because Joe, he was still doing that work at Zuni, and Clara was going to be picking that up. And there was insights into open education, and I think Beth Franklin was going to edit that, and there was teaching and learning, the Journal of Natural Inquiry, and there was the Peace Studies program that he had been instrumental in starting at the University of North Dakota. There was the North Dakota Teacher Center Network, which after he left grew to 10 centers, and which continued to grow with funding from the Bush Foundation. And there were, then of course there was the North Dakota Study Group, which he would stay affiliated with wherever he went, but we talked about how the University of North Dakota would remain involved with that, and then there were all the things about the teacher education program. So it was really a complicated set of wonderful connections that got started in his office.
It's obvious from the whole weekend that all that you are doing in the meeting this weekend and all of that is reflected here, which is your work out in the world with kids and students and teachers and communities and farms and every number of things that you are involved in is a major tribute to him.
The first thing is I applied for a job at the University of North Dakota in 1985, and my interview was scheduled for February in North Dakota. And I went and I thought, well, look, there's no way I'm going to go there. And it's North Dakota and it's February. So this will really show me. And I got off the plane and I interviewed and I met Vito, and I went to North Dakota. And just the quality of his leadership was just, it's sort of hard to describe. I would remember being angry or adamant about something and going down to his office to talk to him. I was going to have him understand my perspective, and I was going to turn things around. And he would sit there and in his calm way talk to you, and you would leave absolutely grateful for the opportunity to be there, to be doing the work you were doing. It was like, oh, you're right, I've seen the error of my ways, and you're completely right, and how could I have been anything other than totally enthusiastic about your plan? And it was like, and it was almost like this kind of magic thing had happened, and you'd leave and you were like, I think I was trying to get something when I went in there, or I was annoyed about something, and I can't even remember what it was. And it was just this ability, and it wasn't just persuasiveness, it was that Vito always had a strong vision of what the world was supposed to be like, and what education was supposed to be like, and how those were connected. And in any conversation with you, he was able to remind you of that vision, and if you had lost it, to reacquaint you with it, so that, you know, the kind of day-to-day minutia that drives us all, you know, kind of crazy was forgotten, because we were, once again, really just connected to what it is that we really wanted to do in the world, and that was just his magic and his power, and is his magic.
He never forgot a name or a face, ever. And he remembered everybody.
I've been trying to think about my own connection to Vito, and in some ways it's tied into my feelings and my memory for my own father. And in a lot of ways, the both of them resembled each other, not the least physically, color of hair, complexion, but more importantly, both of them were consummate gentlemen. They were gentle men. They were the kind of men that when we think about gender and, you know, what's maternal and what's paternal, when you meet that kind of person, that distinction is blurred, because they incorporate both of those sides, or both of those things which we ascribe to the different sexes in our own definitions. My father always greeted neighbors every morning. You had to say hello when you walked down the street. And I noticed that Vito used to greet the neighbors here in North Dakota every time. Vito worked real hard. I mean, he had this capacity, it seems to me, to be able to recognize the capabilities that people had, their capacity. He could see that. People have mentioned that. I mean, that he saw something in Joe a long time ago when Joe had doubts, or other people that he encouraged, what Kathy just said. Everybody here will have that kind of a tale, and I think what it was that he was able to look at the work, the real work that people were doing. He respected the work that you were doing. I don't know how you see the capacity in a person if you don't see what else is going on. I mean, it's not easy. But when he told us he was bringing up the folks from Texas, he was able to talk about the work that they were doing in the context of their people and the context of their struggles. And he talked about other people that unfortunately haven't gotten here yet. He was planning on bringing a group from the American South, if I remember. And hopefully he will be back here soon, and he will get those people here.
His standards were always specific to people and where they were moving. So he was impatient with the idea that you had to be a standard in the sense of a, what do you want to call it, a line everybody had to reach. Because, and people who would say at the university, well, I can't give you a passing course because you didn't do X or Y. It was always in relationship to all 80 of those students' own goals and who they were.
Is this on? Yeah. You know, Vito has a childlike curiosity, a sense of wonder just about all kinds of things, even ordinary things. Let me illustrate with this story, because this happened in New York maybe a couple of months before he was stricken. We were at the Marriott Marquis, so those of you who've been in New York City, you know what kind of hotel that is. Very expensive and very big and all of that. We were at a meeting and were serving on a panel the whole day talking about Montessori schools. Something that thrilled neither Vito nor I. But we thought we could do this with other people. And during the break, Vito and I went down. We said we just wanted to get out of that hotel, just get the fresh air and all of that. So we got into the elevator, and I'm not sure now about the sequence of events here, but in the elevator there was this enormous, huge, tall fellow. I mean, he probably about 7'5" or something like that. And Vito went in ahead of me, and then I followed. I mean, I've never seen Vito so small, but because he was not aware of that. But of course, if you've been to New York City and you get to elevators in a hotel like the Marriott, nobody talks to anybody unless you know each other. And I got a sense that Victor had something in his mind here, because I saw his smile. He had that smile. Sometimes you're not sure whether it was a mischievous smile or a sweet smile, but always the same smile. And I suspect that he wanted to know how tall this man actually was. So he turned to me, and Vito turned to me and was talking kind of rather loud so everybody could hear clearly in that elevator. He said, "Oh, do you know Sabonis?" And I said, "You mean the basketball player?" He said, "Yeah, the basketball player. He said, you know how tall he is?" I said, "I don't know. He's about 7'4" and so. And Victor said, "Oh yeah, he's an enormous fellow. I mean, I've seen him play and all of that and so on. All the time, he's moving, turning around and so on." And I knew he's trying to make some kind of contact with this man. So after a while, this fellow looked down. And then Vito said, "Maybe he's taller than this gentleman too." And the fellow smiled, and Vito said, "Oh, by the way, how tall are you?" So that's how we got to find out that he's 7'5". I mean, this was Vito at his best. Thank you very much.
There are many of us in this room who didn't have the privilege to know Vito. And so I just want to say that I'm grateful that he was such a big person, such a person that he made the work that you are all doing possible, and that you are inspired to carry it on and pass it on to the rest of us.